It's all chaos all the time. Kathleen Turner, Burt Reynolds, Christopher Reeve. Switching channel. Saturday at 8 on Channel 11.
The following program was recorded earlier this evening.
In New York, this is the Channel 11 News at 10 with Tiny Tom, Jack Carpenter, Jerry Gerard, and Mr. G.
Good evening. It hit like a bolt of lightning, shattering the quiet night sky with explosive fury.
A tanker truck loaded with propane gas slammed into an overpass on Interstate 287 last night in White Plains, lighting up the night sky with a midnight inferno that turned a suburban neighborhood into an apocalyptic scene of death and destruction. The force of the blast killed the truck driver and sent a chunk of the tanker flying into a nearby house. The crackling flames engulfed that home and several others, shaking residents from their beds and sending them screaming into the night.
When I ran out of the house, it was like hell. I don't know. I thought the world was coming to an end.
And as night gave way today, the extent of the damage became even more apparent. And while I-287 has been reopened now, investigators are beginning the long search for answers as to what went wrong. Julian Phillips begins our team coverage with that part of the story.
Authorities say the explosion was caused by a propane truck filled with a flammable gas traveling eastbound on Interstate 287 at 12:15 this morning, sending a fireball into the sleepy White Plains neighborhood bordering the interstate on both sides, completely or partially destroying at least 5 homes and sending residents into a panic.
23 persons were injured as a result of the fires. The truck driver was pronounced dead by the Westchester County Medical Examiner.
The blast buckled the Grand Avenue Bridge overhead, completely destroying one concrete column, and in the process sending portions of the truck in different directions. The undercarriage flew over 30-foot trees from the interstate onto Clinton Street, the axle and tires destroying a garage of a home. The truck's cabin with the dead driver at least 200 yards on the opposite side of the bridge, and the tank with the propane over a fence past trees and into 2 homes just off Grant Avenue. You're looking at the charred remains of this propane tanker directly behind me here. Authorities say it contained at least 9,200 pounds of fuel, enough to turn it into a rocket. After hitting the bridge, flying across 287, hitting this house directly to the left, coming across and hitting this house behind it, totally demolishing it, and landing in the driveway. Officials who are investigating reveal the truck as a Ryder rental with the propane belonging to Paraco, a family-owned company with offices in nearby Purchase and Smithtown, Long Island. The driver of the truck, 24-year-old Peter Conway from Selden, New York.
The truck was heading from Port Reading, New Jersey, to Smithtown, Long Island.
To the Paraco fuel depot. Paraco officials told Channel 11 it is a prescribed route by the Department of Transportation, that their hearts go out to the family of the driver and the people affected, and that they have never had an incident like this. But an official investigation is underway, and police would not confirm rumors as to whether the driver may have fallen asleep or give any details about his driving record. Meanwhile, Con Ed workers are trying to restore gas and electricity to homes. Downed power lines were evident amongst charred remains of houses, trees, and cars. And insurance companies are on the scene assessing the damage.
We know that at least one person had one home insured with us, and we've already been in contact with them to help them out at this time, and we're just surveying the area now to see if there's anybody else that we could lend some help to.
The column is sheared off at the ground line. You can see the rebar has been cleaned off and bent.
State Department of Transportation officials say the Grant Avenue Bridge won't be repaired until 2 months from now, but it will be stabilized so the 6 lanes of I-287, which runs underneath and transports over 100,000 cars daily, can be opened as soon as possible. In White Plains, I'm Julian Phillips with the Channel 11 News at 10.
And for the people in that neighborhood, it was like waking up in hell. Shaken out of their slumber by the rumbling blast, to hear screams piercing the air and fire licking at their heels as they ran to escape the flames. Rosemary Gomez is that part of the story.
Bam! Everything just started exploding.
It seemed like a nuclear explosion to some.
Like the world came to an end.
A plane crash or an earthquake to others.
A loud noise, a bang.
By daylight, dazed residents got a better look at the damages and wondered how they ever made it through the night.
My sons, 3 sons, my son de 2 months, me. I don't know. It's terrible, terrible.
Firefighters compare it to a golf ball being hit over a football field, except in this case, a ball of fire landed in someone's backyard, burning everything in its path.
This place was lit.
Laura Ruo is watching TV upstairs. Now there's nothing left of her room. The tank hit her house before it landed, but its rear wheels wound up 2.5 blocks away, narrowly missing a bedroom where 2 children slept.
We heard the rumbling because of when a tire came rolling in, and then we got up to see all the flames out of the window. It felt like an earthquake when the tire rolled in. It was scary, very scary.
The Covert family of Clinton Street considers themselves more than lucky. The propane tank landed in their backyard. 7 people were inside this home when the accident happened. 2 jumped out of a window, literally landing on the tank.
The door was stuck, and they jumped. They told us later that they jumped off the back and made it. It was the best thing to see my parents. They came out like 30 seconds later than we did.
Francine Covert says luckily a friend who's a firefighter was visiting the family at the time. John Calderola sprained his foot fighting the flames, but says it could have been a lot worse. What would it have been like had they been back there?
No one would have made it. No one would have made it.
Nina Resigno was also saved by a firefighter. Her father's a hospital fire marshal and got his family out of the house just in the nick of time.
He just grabbed me, and as he grabbed me, flames and the window just came dashing through right at us.
There were plenty of stories of heroism, and in the end, neighbors banded together, making sure everyone made it out alive. In White Plains, I'm Rosemary Gomez for the Channel 11 News at 10.
Here's the casualty toll from that explosion so far. The death toll is 1 dead, 23 were hurt, 3 of those remain in critical condition, 7 more are reported in serious condition. And while those are not pleasant numbers, it's a toll that certainly could have been much higher, if not for the heroics of firefighters, emergency workers, and doctors on the scene. Ed Miller's live at Westchester County Medical Center with the very latest on the injured for us. Ed?
Jack, the tiniest victim of this awful accident is suffering a different pain than the others who were burned, separated too soon from his mother. The yet unnamed baby boy forced to be born more than 2 months premature simply because his mother is so gravely ill. She is the most seriously injured of all those who were hurt. Emergency workers rush to the scene to treat the injured the best they can before racing the most serious off to the hospital. 3 members of one family in the eye of the explosion, trapped inside a giant oven, burning red hot from all the propane.
We know that the temperatures near the fireball were tremendous because the health department related us today that their investigation at the scene showed that there were pieces of the aluminum tank which had actually melted.
The 3 members of that one Dominican family, Ana Espinal, her husband Leonardo, and 2-year-old son Lionel, all critical. Ana, 30 weeks pregnant, on a respirator, suffers burns over 58% of her body. Whenever burns are extensive, the risk of infection is high. That's why doctors decide to induce labor, to force the baby into the world, to try to save the child from a mother who barely has enough strength for herself, let alone her unborn child.
I pray, all the family prays to everything go okay. I hope that God help the family to everything go.
And obviously, they hope the little baby is okay.
I hope the little baby coming okay, and the wife and the Lionel.
Early this evening, a tiny baby boy is born here at the Westchester Medical Center, unaware of the midnight inferno which has interrupted his normal growth, protected from the flames by his mother's nurturing body and love.
The baby was 4 pounds, 6 ounces. It was a baby boy, 17.5 inches long. The baby was transferred to the nursery and is doing very well right now.
I think we're very lucky that there weren't more incidents of very serious burns related to this particular catastrophe. This was an explosion that could have had much more casualties associated with it.
Altogether, 23 injured. Ana Espinal and her 2-year-old little boy, extremely critical. The premature baby, so far, so good. The burn unit here also giving victims and their families psychological counseling to help them deal with this fiery nightmare. I'm Ed Miller, live in Westchester. Back to you, Heidi.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Police and FBI imposed a security crackdown around 2 Israeli government offices here in New York after a wave of anti-Jewish terrorist attacks around the world. You're looking right now at a live shot of the Israeli consulate on 2nd Avenue at 42nd Street. Cement security barriers are in place there, as you can see, and police are out in full force. Authorities are afraid the next major attack could come right in our own backyard. Barry Cunningham has details.
Terrorist bomb threats against the Israeli consulate on 2nd Avenue prompted police and FBI agents to mobilize quickly this morning. Following car bomb attacks on Jewish targets in Buenos Aires and London, the anti-terrorism task force was taking no chances. They blockaded the consulate building with sanitation sand trucks, dumpsters, and police emergency vehicles. Cars and trucks parked along the street were towed away. Security guards carefully screened the credentials of anyone entering the building. Later in the day, construction workers unloaded cement road dividers to cordon off a security zone around the consulate.
People in New York can feel very safe, they can feel very secure, but the police department is taking all the steps that you should take to make that possible.
The same improvised security precautions were taken to block off streets surrounding the 5th Avenue synagogue as the Israeli consul general and UN delegates joined other dignitaries mourning the death of 105 people in the bombing of a Jewish center in Buenos Aires 8 days ago.
The time has come for the countries and nations of all the world to declare an all-out war on this insane fanatic threat. It is cancer in the international and human community that must be cut off.
Israel's UN ambassador Gad Jacobi blamed radical Islamic extremists for the new wave of anti-Semitic terrorism, including the bombing of Jewish passengers on a plane in Panama last week and 2 explosions in London. 14 people were injured in a terrorist blast at the Israeli embassy. 5 were injured in a bomb blast at a Jewish fundraising organization. The Israeli consul general here, Ambassador Colette Avital, vowed that death threats will not derail the Mideast peace process, advanced on Tuesday by Jordan's King Hussein and Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin.
Major Jewish organizations in New York agree that the terrorist bombings will only strengthen Israel's resolve to make peace with her Arab neighbors. And while Jews here in New York and around the world worry over what the next target may be, police and FBI say they are merely taking prudent measures to make certain that the tragedy of Buenos Aires doesn't happen here. At the Israeli consulate, Barry Cunningham, Channel 11, News at 10.
There were some new developments in the O.J. Simpson case today, including the filing of the first civil lawsuit. The mother of murder victim Ronald Goldman has filed a wrongful death suit against Simpson. Sharon Rupo claims in her suit that Simpson is responsible for her son's death, even though he is yet to be tried for the murders.
I simply do not know how to express the pain that I have experienced since the horrible day when I was first notified of Ronnie's death. I think that only a mother who has lost her only son could fully understand the despair I have experienced during the last 6 weeks.
In another development, Simpson's lawyers lost ground over tomorrow's scheduled DNA tests of blood samples. Judge Lance Ito has ruled that defense experts must rely on technicians at a Maryland laboratory to examine the blood samples and not do it themselves. The judge said he'll decide later whether the defense can conduct its own tests on the blood. Later in this broadcast, we'll take a closer look at those tests and the crucial answers they may in fact provide.
We have a lot more ahead tonight on the News at 10. Accused serial killer Joel Rifkin back in court, telling a judge why he confessed to murder.
It took 17 years, but tonight police say they've cracked the mysterious disappearance and presumed death of Candy heiress Helen Brock.
A new study says 1 in 5 Americans has contaminated drinking water in their home.
We'll show you a dramatic rescue effort after 4 teenagers fell into a rain-swollen river in the south.
Now let's go now to Mr. G in the Weather Center. G?
All right, Connie, more rain's on the way. This is the damage reports in the last 24 hours. And take a look at the radar with me, and you'll be able to see a line of very heavy showers and thunderstorms central southern New Jersey, Delaware, heading in our direction. How much rain? How long will it fall? And what about the next 5 days? All that after this.
You've seen the evidence. You've heard the testimony. But there's one unexplained mystery at the heart of the O.J. Simpson murder case neither side will talk about.
2 cars that were parked in there?
No, in a special 1-hour edition of the Conspiracy Tapes. Listen as sworn testimony and exclusive interviews expose a shocking new angle that could change everything.
I think that mystery car is a key to what happened here.
The O.J. Conspiracy, Sunday at 7, only on Channel 11.
Pardon me.
Wow, that's some breath.
Oh,
I agree. I've enjoyed your breath ever since 96th Street.
thank you very much.
Want the ultimate fresh breath? Try Breath Savers with its cool minty core. Now in vanilla mint.
Oh,
Ritz Bits peanut butter sandwiches with the delicious taste of real peanut butter on the inside and buttery little Ritz crackers on the outside. Who can resist a Ritz Bits sandwich with peanut butter?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not here merely to remind you that Lincoln Mercury dealers are selling more cars than you are. I'm here to blame you.
Maybe if you made quality cars like Lincoln Mercury, we'd be able to match their summer deals. Right, guys?
The Lincoln Mercury Summer Sales Drive is on now with great deals across the board and a great luxury of choice with generous values available on all Lincolns.
Any more questions?
See your Lincoln Mercury dealer today.
See the pages of history unfold.
While fantasy tales are told at the New York Renaissance Festival.
Zooms as if by Merlin's magic, 500 performers and craftsmen are there. Shakespeare, Chaucer, a grand pleasure fair.
Come in costume, colors so bright. Thrill to the joust. Spend your day with our knights.
Weekends now through mid-September at Sterling Forest, the New York Renaissance Fair, where all the fairs are staged.
Accused serial killer Joel Rifkin took the stand today in a Suffolk County courtroom. Rifkin is changing the story he gave to police when he admitted killing 17 women. He now says he was forced to give the confession and does not want it used against him. Frank Luciardo has more now from our Long Island Bureau.
Accused serial killer Joel Rifkin was on the witness stand in Suffolk County Criminal Court for a pretrial hearing into whether or not a confession he made to police after requesting an attorney can be used against him.
He requested an attorney, and one was not given to him. And later on during the day, he cooperated with them, but that was after at least 20 requests for an attorney were denied.
Suffolk prosecutor Michael Ahern asked Rifkin about his interrogation by detectives, to which he replied, "I asked for an attorney 20 times. Later, Ahern held up a composite picture of Leah Evans, one of the two women Rifkin is accused of murdering in Suffolk. On the picture was a notation from Rifkin that read, "Looks like girl I buried." When Ahern asked Joel if he wrote it, he said, "This is what the detectives told me to write, word for word." Then Ahern asked Rifkin, "Did you tell detectives where the body was?" Rifkin answered, "Yes." Ahern then asked, "You gave Detective Mercer directions to the body?" Rifkin replied, "At that point, I had given up," meaning that he had given up trying to ask for an attorney.
My contention is that he voluntarily waived his rights and that he gave us a voluntary statement with regard to what he had done with these particular victims.
Rifkin was convicted earlier this year of murdering a Nassau County woman in a case where the prosecution was allowed to use his confession to police to make their case. Rifkin is suspected of murdering at least 18 women whom he allegedly strangled after having sex with them. The pretrial hearing will pick up again here on Friday when the prosecution is expected to introduce a rebuttal witness. Now that witness will likely be one of the detectives that interrogated Joel Rifkin and heard his confession. In Riverhead, Frank Luciardo, Channel 11 News at 10.
A computer glitch was responsible for the release of a man wanted for murder who police say then later killed a homeless woman in Central Park. Officials say a fingerprint computer in Albany failed to identify Andre Foreman because he lied about his age. Mary Murphy has the story.
31-year-old Cheryl Newbold was living in this tent, pregnant with twins, when detectives found her fatally stabbed near the Central Park boathouse on July 9th. That same day, 2 other women were raped in the park, and another one slashed inside Tavern on the Green.
A fluke, an unfortunate fluke, that we had these incidents in and about the park.
But the murder, it turns out, was no fluke. Police now say that Newbold's suspected killer was wanted for a 1993 murder in Pennsylvania, a fact that New York authorities were notified about, something that slipped through the cracks.
This video from the TV program Prime Suspect shows the wanted man, Andre Foreman, who was being hunted for the June 1993 killing of this elderly Pennsylvania motel clerk. Foreman's fingerprints were sent to New York State with a note.
Yet when Foreman was arrested in Central Park on May 10th for stealing a homeless man's false teeth, his fingerprints that were sent up to Albany failed to match up with any that were on file. Foreman was freed.
Freed despite the fact that Foreman's prints were already in the computer after a 1985 drug arrest. Problem is, Foreman had given a phony birth date. When we called Albany, we found out that the old computer system could check prints within a 14-year age range. Foreman's phony date just missed the mark, so no match was made, and Albany sent the prints to the FBI.
Well, the FBI comes into play here because they have access to out-of-state information, which New York does not have in our files here. In this instance, a murder warrant from Pennsylvania, a prosecutor's warrant, and a parole warrant from New Jersey.
2 weeks before the murder in Central Park, a new high-tech computer system in Albany checked the prints again. This time a match was made, but no authorities were notified.
This was a tragic human error in that on June 26th, a fingerprint examiner looked at those fingerprints and determined they did not come from the same person.
And so it fell to the small police department of Kinnelon, New Jersey, to unwittingly catch the wanted man as he tried to burglarize this mansion.
He was swearing, cursing, trying to get away from us from cuffing him.
Well, the next day we found out about the murder in Pennsylvania, and we were quite surprised. And then a few days after that, they were trying to tie him in with the murders in New York City.
He said his name was Jason Brown.
And this Kinnelon detective had no trouble making a fingerprint match against the New Jersey state computer.
The computer identifies certain points of identification on a fingerprint.
It's only fair to point out that Andre Foreman did not give a radically different birth date to New Jersey police, but the case has sufficiently shaken up New York State that it will now require a supervisor to double-check all questionable printouts. I'm Mary Murphy, Channel 11 News at 10.
The mysterious disappearance of Candy heiress Helen Brock may be solved finally, 17 years after it happened. Federal prosecutors have charged Richard Bailey, Brock's former boyfriend, with hiring a hitman to kill her. Bailey allegedly preyed on wealthy single women to gain their confidence and eventually their money.
Bailey defrauded Brock by selling her hundreds of thousands of dollars of virtually worthless horses. When Helen Brock discovered that Bailey had conned her, she announced that she was going to seek justice and that she was going to report him to the law enforcement authorities. To silence Helen Brock, Bailey conspired, solicited, and caused her murder.
Brock was last seen alive in February 1977, checking out of the Mayo Clinic. Prosecutors would not say if they have located her body. Jack?
If you think the water you drink is safe, think again. An environmental group says much of America's drinking water is contaminated with toxic chemicals, bacteria, parasites, and other pollutants. The Natural Resources Defense Council says 1 in 5 Americans drinks improperly treated water.
Estimates have been made by scientists with the Centers for Disease Control that over 900,000 people may get sick per year as a result of contaminated water. That's simply acute illnesses. And over 900 people may die as a result of simply these bacterial-type contaminants.
The group says the necessary improvements would cost the average household only about $25 a year.
Well, there are now 35 confirmed cases of E. coli bacteria poisoning in New Jersey. Health officials have been trying to determine the source of this contamination, but they're still no closer to finding the answer. New Jersey correspondent Stephanie Shelton has this story.
Confirmed cases of E. coli bacteria poisoning from undercooked hamburger have now shown up in 10 New Jersey counties. So far, it's all from supermarkets, none from restaurants. But that's about the only common denominator investigators seem to have turned up.
Some were exposed out of state, some were exposed at home, some were at a family gathering and potentially exposed there. There hasn't been any common source in that sense.
Some of the meat was bought as far away as California, upstate New York, and Vermont. But because of the way markets process and then package their ground beef, it's extremely difficult to trace the contaminated meat.
Most supermarkets in this state get their hamburger meat from 2 or 3 different distributors, and it varies each day of the week where they get it from, wherever they get the best price. And they sometimes mix it together, sometimes they serve it straight. What they were selling on Tuesday could be from an entirely different source from what they were selling on Wednesday.
And neither the federal government nor most states requires meat distributors or supermarket chains to keep supplier records. Since last year's E. coli outbreak in the West, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has stepped up its visual inspections at slaughterhouses.
We have a number of different educational campaigns going on to cook thoroughly. We're looking into faster tests to detect E. coli much earlier.
Since last month, all ground beef as well as poultry must carry this warning sticker, which includes instructions to wash working surfaces, utensils, and hands after touching, and to cook the meat thoroughly. That's to 155 degrees or until gray inside. At the slaughterhouses, USDA is experimenting with washing carcasses with water and vinegar to clean off the fecal material that carries E. coli. And the Centers for Disease Control keeps looking for a quick on-site test that could identify the microscopic bacteria. But so far, the quickest tests take about an hour. still far too long. Federal and state officials say that it's possible that the current outbreak of E. coli bacteria could be traced to just one slaughterhouse, but they say it's also possible that they will never really know. In New Jersey, Stephanie Shelton, Channel 11 News at 10.
Still ahead as we continue, the fight for food disrupts the long lines of Rwandan refugees trying to return to their homeland from Zaire.
And inside the Cuban Missile Crisis, new tapes reveal what really went on in the Kennedy White House at the height of the confrontation.
Introducing the most durable bounty ever.
It does jobs I never thought a paper towel could do. Now it's the quilted picker-upper.
The quilted wicker picker-upper.
It even scrubs the carpet.
Ordinary towels fall apart, even top quality towels, but new quilted bounty's this much stronger. It's still quicker, too.
The quilted wicker picker-upper. New quilted bounty.
Is your credit report holding you back from refinancing your home? Hi, I'm Jim Palmer. Well, if it is, call the Money Store. At the Money Store, they'll treat you like an individual and look at your total credit history, not just today's credit report. You can apply entirely by phone at the Money Store, and there's never an application fee. So don't let your credit report stop you from refinancing your first mortgage. Call 1-800-LOAN-YES, the Money Store, where America goes for money.
I know a place where we all can meet. There's so much fun that can't be beat. Let's get together and make it fast. Hold on tight, 'cause it's gonna last. The fun, the food, the ride. You're gonna be surprised. It's the best time of our lives. Rock 'em, roll 'em, Riverside.
Riverside, New England's largest family fun park. Now open daily.
Rock 'em, roll 'em, Riverside.
Route 159, Agawam, Massachusetts. You'll taste
7 kinds of fruit in Hawaiian punch. 7 kinds of fruit in Hawaiian punch. Look what's here. Double C Hawaiian Punch. Vitamin C plus calcium. As much calcium as half a serving of milk. So when it comes to nutrition, we're leaps and bounds above ordinary fruit drinks. Hey, how about a nice Hawaiian punch?
Sure.
Double C Hawaiian Punch. Packs a healthier punch. For that one-of-a-kind fruit taste.
Question. Name the 94 automobile of the year. What starts under $9,000 and is only at your Dodge dealer? Answer, Dodge Neon. Now go have some fun. For all the answers, see your nearest Dodge dealer. Question. Name Motor Trend's 94 truck of the year. What truck offers overall the most powerful lineup of engines on the planet and is only at your Dodge dealer? Answer, Dodge Ram. Now get to work. For all the answers, see your nearest Dodge dealer.
The U.S. Army set up a water purification plant outside Goma, Zaire today. It's the first step in trying to end the nightmare in the largest refugee camp in all the world, but it didn't go off without a hitch. There were only 2 tanker trucks to move the water. One was fouled with gasoline and the other leaked like a sieve. Meanwhile, cholera continues to spread like wildfire and thousands of refugees are once again on the move. Mike Hanna reports on their long walk home to Rwanda.
So many hands to fill, so many people to care for. Biscuits on the side of the road won't prevent starvation. But to the refugees of Rwanda, it does signal that somebody has noticed. They're on the long walk home. Over the past few days, thousands of people have come back across the Zairean border, most walking along the 100-mile-long road to the Rwandan capital, Kigali. The first of many UN relief convoys comes down the road against the flow. In this unprecedented operation, the UN is getting supplies to people on the move, trucking supplies down the route from Kigali, intending to carry the sick and the crippled on the way back.
What we're doing is we're distributing basically from the back of the truck.
Wherever large groups are found, food is offloaded.
We don't want anybody rushing the truck, okay?
Rwandan soldiers are enlisted on the spot to handle distribution.
Because you organize them, fine.
This United Nations convoy is providing more than material relief. Its presence here and that of the others that will follow is evidence to the refugees of Rwanda that it's safe to return to their once war-torn country. But walking with the refugees is death by starvation or disease. And needed now inside as well as outside Rwanda is a humanitarian operation on a massive scale. Mike Hanna, Rwanda.
A North Korean official has defected to the south with a disturbing story about the communist nuclear program. This man claims to be the son-in-law of North Korea's prime minister. He also claims the North already has 5 nuclear weapons and will have 5 more by year's end, along with the technology to deliver them. The State Department can't say whether he's telling the truth.
The world teetered on the edge of nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. But newly released White House tapes reveal that President Kennedy was cool as a cucumber as he studied the Soviet threat with his top advisors. Brian Jenkins has the story.
Mid-October 1962, 2 days after President Kennedy is informed that U.S. spy planes have spotted Soviet missile sites going up in Cuba, and 4 days before he informs the nation, the president and his top national security advisors meet at the White House to discuss his options. Undersecretary of State George Ball, who died recently, cautions against a surprise attack on the missile sites.
A course of action where we strike without warning is like Pearl Harbor. It's the kind of conduct that one might expect of the Soviet Union. It is not conduct that one expects of the United States.
The president bristles a bit at that remark, but wonders if he should give some sort of warning to Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. He asks if anyone thinks the United States ought to take no action, and there is silence.
The question really is what action we take, which lessens the chances of a nuclear exchange, which obviously is the final failure.
Of the roughly 15 men at the meeting, only President Kennedy and his brother Robert knew they were being recorded. The JFK Presidential Library was given government clearance in the 1980s to release tape excerpts from 2 other meetings during the crisis. The tapes issued now are the first to cover entire meetings. Ted Sorensen remembers how close it came to war.
I was asked to try my hand at the kind of ultimatum or warning letter to Khrushchev that would precede an airstrike, and I found that it just was not possible to write such a letter that could stand the light of logic and history.
In the end, a majority of the president's advisors called for a blockade of Cuba until the Soviets removed their missiles, and he went on TV to announce his decision.
I have directed the armed forces to prepare for any eventuality.
But within a week, the Soviets backed down. And now it seems as if those calm, cool voices from the past kept the peace by force of will and reason. Brian Jenkins.